Hello, FewCandy here, and welcome back to another episode of Cities Skylines. And last time out, we started padding out our commuter town of Cadbury with more little residential neighbourhoods like this new build one on the bottom left of our screen here. We also had the low wealth income area and the other kind of European inspired area as well. But our commuter town is filling out quite nicely now. Still a little bit of work to be done on the outer suburbs, but it really is getting there. So for today, we are going to turn our attention to some job needs for this town. Now, we do have, of course, our little industrial area here, which again, I'm in love with. I'm really proud of this area. But we also need to add forestry into Auridon because we do have ore over here. We do also have farming, of course, in our magnificent, huge farming area. And we, of course, had oil, which was episode 4 of Auridon an awfully long time ago, but we are yet to have any forestry in. And we have a lot of factories that require forestry products across Auridon, which have just been left, shut down, turned off for many years in Auridon now. So it's about time we gave them some planed wood and paper, I think. So let's build ourselves a forestry area. So we are going to focus on this area right here, which is nicely situated between the commuter town of Cadbury and, of course, the main city of Auridon over here, quite close to the farming industry as well. So I'm expecting a lot of industrial traffic up this road. This junction may choke, although right now it's actually looking pretty good. But because I was a little bit concerned about traffic, I have just thrown in somewhat temporary, but will be permanent, but it needs a lot of detailing and a lot of work to it, cargo station here. So we do have obviously the farm and it will be the forestry area, which we're able to import and export via this cargo station here. We will come back and detail this all up and make it make a lot more sense and feel more realistic, probably on a live stream. But if we build our forestry in here, then it has got nice connections out to the highway this way, obviously the rail terminal over here, connections out to the commuter town and back onto the other highway to export from the city over this side. So it's in quite a good location, and of course with the map it has come with some really nice forestry raw resources here as well. So we are just making use of what the map offers us. So I have actually just smoothed out this road and made a cut through between these hills, because what I'd like to do is put the forestry kind of all the way around this, so it's surrounding this road. So you drive through these big embanked cliff sides with forestry over each side on top, and possibly a little rural road actually connecting the two sides over the top here, which I think will make quite a nice touch. But when we look at the contour lines, it is quite an undulating area to be building a forestry industry on. Now, forestry can actually conform to the terrain, so we'll have some nice tree plantations, I think, going up the hill. But what we do want to do first is just smooth out a little bit of an area at the bottom here for making our main entrance yard, our main log yard for the site, because they look a little bit strange when they're going uphill. So that should do us for now, but we may need to make it a little bit bigger at some stage. Okay, so first things first, we want to create a nice entrance road for this, and I'm thinking what I will use is an industrial road. I'm not going to go straight into rural roads, which will probably make up the most of our forestry build today, but we will come into this, and I think what I'd really like to see is this transitioning into rural roads from here. So we are going to use the classic mud road that we've used a lot in Auridon, and we're going to create basically a little kind of workers' square to situate some of the main buildings around here. So I'm actually just going to clear out some of these trees. We've got locked forestry resources on, so this won't have any impact on the forestry resources that are in this area, I would add. So to start our forestry area, and full disclaimer, as many of you will know if you've been following this, somewhere along the line I accidentally unlocked tools. So we won't be following progression from level 1 through to level 5. However, we will be aiming to get a level 5 forestry area. Of course, it's going to be pretty sizable, so I think it'll be relatively easy for us to hit that. We're then going to need an absolute ton more workers after that as well. Let's start by placing our main building, which is the first thing you need for an industrial area. And what I would like is this right kind of by the entrance here as you first come up. Now this building changes as it levels up, so we need to keep our eye on that. We won't be detailing up around this immediately because, like I said, this building is going to change quite drastically actually for the forestry area. And then what I'd really like to do in this area is create essentially like a worker's yard. So I'm thinking what would be good for this is a bit of storage. Now, these log yards, which come with the forestry industry, are some of my favourite assets, I have to say. I just think they worked so nicely. So what we're going to do is have a few of these around this kind of central forecourt, which is going to be pretty open. We'll use some gravel surface painter and some mud decals and such like to really kind of bring it to life and make it feel like it's got a bit more purpose, but it's going to essentially operate as a bit of an open space clearing around a lot of these forestry storage and processing buildings here. So let's just bring this across a little bit further. I'm going to go probably more than we need, because what I would like to put in here is then a large log yard, and I think just combining these up will make a nice look and feel around this edge. Now there's some work to be done here. Clearly this has got car parking spaces on it. Don't really want that. I definitely don't want the pavement surface here as well, so let's get rid of that. And yeah, I do think we are going to bob off those car parking spaces, so let's just find them and remove them. And do you know what? I absolutely love this little building here. It's super cute. It doesn't look like it should be a forestry building. It looks like it should be a holiday home. Let's have that log yard in like that anyway, and then we'll bring this down the side here. And on this side, what I do want to start off with is a little bit of processing as well. Now, I know we haven't put in our raw forestry yet, but we're just going through the mechanics of planning out this area, and this is really, I think, what is going to bring it to life. So what I'm actually going to do is cut that bit of road off here. We're going to add in a biomass pellet plant. Now, this is literally one of my favourite assets in the whole game. And of course, you know, I've forgotten the fundamental thing that we need to do, which is expand out our forestry area. Let's go ahead and do that. So with the biomass pellet plant, let's just get down to ground level. What I really want is kind of when you come in through here, and this will be quite heavily forested when we come up to the detailing part of it, I want you to be able to see that infrastructure. So I'm thinking actually maybe shifting this over a little bit further would be good. So let's just grab our level terrain again, and we'll need to just make this area a little bit larger. So let's just extend this road down the side of our log yard over here. And then we'll move this over just a little bit. So I'm kind of thinking when you come in, you want to be able to see that conveyor belt, which I think is, yeah, like that. So it's kind of sneak peeking you a little bit as you come round, and then you get some more of this infrastructure. And what we'll do in the middle here is use some of the generic forestry industry, because it is important as well to not only use the industry DLC's buildings, but also the regular vanilla zoned industry as well. So there are a lot of cute assets within this forestry pack, and these assets just go super nicely into that. So what we will be doing is looking to incorporate some of these vanilla assets into this area here, with a kind of worker's yard very much around it. I think possibly one on this corner, maybe a processing building that side as well. Now, does that kind of block our view as we come in? That's what I want to make sure is maintained. Yeah, see, it takes away a little bit from this one, so I feel like that is just slightly too large. So I think let's use move it here. And what I actually might do with this one is put it into the side of our log yard here. So we get that like this. There's potential for this to sit in quite nicely, actually. But in general, I'm quite happy with that placement. I think let's make the fence come between those windows there, and what we'll do is just then extend this fence over once we have removed it, which we'll do now. So we're going to use Network Multi-Tool. We haven't done this for quite a while. We're going to unlock the segment. We're going to find that piece of fence, unlock it. Then we're going to come to the bulldozer, remove that segment of fence so that is no longer there, and then what we can do is just extend this fence round. Now I'm going to use a few nodes and use the vanilla forestry fence here because that is what this is using, and it makes the most sense realistically to do that. So let's just draw this up slightly further, and we'll just bring it across, I think, like that to create a little bit more of a yard here. And then, as mentioned, what we'll do is just bring that fence straight across into that wall, which just completes the area. So we kind of incorporated one of our generic industry buildings into there. And that then maintains the sight line as well out to here. So in the centre we'll have lots and lots of props and the such like building out this area. Now I'm going to pause the game because at the moment we're importing all of these raw forestry products, which is not good. We don't want to do that. We want to be producing them ourselves. We'll come on to those forestry areas in a second, but let's leave that for now. And then I am thinking at the back here, now the biggest asset of all of the forestry ones, which again is another absolutely magnificent asset, is the pulp mill. So again, with this building, it's super important to check those sight lines because this is quite large. See, this gives us our nice little rural forestry vibes. This gives a whole kind of other different style of building. So I'm not even sure if I want to use this here, to be honest. It may be that we bring in a couple of biomass pellet plants, but I'm going to let it sit for a little bit and see how it goes. But that is generally the kind of shape of our main sort of entrance area here. We do, of course, want to add in some more processing buildings probably along the way, which we will absolutely do. But let's now move on to getting in some of that raw forestry product into here. So this is going to essentially fill these hills either side of this main collector running through here. We'll have some nice tree lines that you can see on top of these cliffs and the such like from the little plots of land that we're going to do. And we also want to be careful that we are incorporating some of the sapling fields as well, because it just gives a really nice kind of authentic vibe, I think, when you mix the two types of plantation in. So what I will do is do that in a quick time lapse and then we'll be right back. Okay, so there we have our main frame. So we've got some absolutely horrendous traffic. If I just show you the extent of it, it's literally backing up all the way through Cadbury. It's awful. So even here, God knows why they're using this little road. Yeah, it's bad, but ultimately this is a product of the game. This is what happens in the vanilla game when you place all of these storage areas and just leave them unbalanced without having the raw resources to stock them up. So we're just importing absolutely everything at the moment. And of course, if I go back to the main game, we've also got a whole load of mornings that they don't have anywhere to sell their goods to. So we've got some problems here. But hopefully this should just be a matter of time. Once these all stop thinking that they want to import to all of our storage facilities, then hopefully these guys should start sorting themselves out. The traffic should die down and we'll be better. I mean, this was backed up way past this junction not that long ago and I've let it run for a little bit. So we are getting there. We're getting there. Just to fly around what we've done. So yeah, I've added in small tree sapling plantations. I've kind of mixed in mostly large plantations here, just using the vanilla conifer tree as well. I did think we could bob them out for some of the Douglas firs, which are a little bit more Auridon, but actually a lot of these tree forestry areas in real life have very distinct type of tree to them, and they're so repeated as well that they kind of stand out a little bit like a sore thumb. So I thought actually in terms of realism, I'd better off leaving them as the conifers so that it's noticeable when you look at Auridon. Very much looks like a tree plantation somewhere different rather than just having the same fir trees that we've got everywhere else in the map. So what we've done is left little kind of clearing areas where we need to come in with a lot of detailing, lots of props around here, maybe a couple more of the vanilla generic zoned industry, which we've got some of the plantations here. We need a few more of those in some odd spaces. We'll definitely fit some in like potentially here as well, because we do need those. I would add to supply the processing buildings from the zoned vanilla industry, and they create different forestry products to what the main industry's DLC buildings produce. So they kind of work together in harmony. So we need to get a lot more of those in. We'll certainly be adding more of the generic industry assets as we go around and detail up some of these kind of gaps in between the trees. Be using a lot of conifers with prop line tool as well to fill in odd spaces, line some of the roads, make it feel less kind of abrupt in terms of the edge of the plot of it. But that is the general idea, and I'm really liking, actually, if we ignore the traffic for a minute, this kind of aesthetic that we get going through this road here with these trees very heavy on either side and this little wooden bridge going across supporting some of those forestry trucks. Yeah, really like that. In terms of this side as well, we've done a similar thing, like we've got a big yard out here which will be the main work yard. Of course, lots of detailing needed. Just fused together two of these planed timber producing, I've forgotten the name of it now, industry buildings here, and we have used network multi-tool as well to remove some of the fences that were clashing, so we can kind of just come in and fence this all off with a bit of detailing around it and help to make it blend in so it looks like one larger facility rather than having just two there. And I have also decided to move the pulp mill over to this side. So what we get from this is, obviously we need some more detail and some more trees around it, but we get this really nice view of this big pulp mill before we come into a lot more of this lower factory area. Nice little shot of the skyline in the background there. And over this side I've actually used a workshop pulp mill here, which is slightly less jarring than the other one. The towers aren't quite as tall, it's less dominant, so I think it fits into this industry area a little bit better. We've just come in and anarchied in a road through these gates as well, which I think adds a nice touch, makes it feel a little bit more realistic having those roads running through it. And there's some really nice detailing on this asset at the back here. I absolutely love all of these little workshop bits and these two little warehouses at the back here as well. So lots of detailing needed, but before we come on to do that, I do want to add in some factories and also go round and turn on the factories that we can now operate. So with forestry, there is obviously the furniture factory that we have yet to place in Auridon. And that just takes plain timber and paper, which is obviously what we are producing in this area here. Now, what I was thinking with this is that we're actually going to put this kind of pride place up against this main collector over here. So let's grab our industrial road and we'll just bring this out a little bit further and then bring it down like this. We might want to turn, let's turn snapping off so we get a nice angle on it. So it's lined up like so, because the orientation of the furniture factory, let's just place it in here. You can see when we're looking at it, this big sign here with the wood vision sign, that is what I want visible from this collector. I think that is a really important aesthetic. The rest of it, kind of this side, is kind of underwhelming in comparison to that nice big Wood Vision sign. However, that's a little bit too close to this collector. Let's just grab move it and we'll shift this back a little bit so we've got a bit more breathing room in between it and the main collector. Let's just drag this road back as well. And I think what we will do is give it a little bit more space next to the pulp mill there, and we're just going to flip it a little bit so it's more in line with the edge of this road. Yeah, I think that's a bit better. And then I'm thinking, in terms of access, it would be best, let's turn snapping back on so we get a nice angle, to bring this in as another connection over here. So you can come into the furniture factory from this way, and just to give it a nice aesthetic as well, let's upgrade this road to one of our plain concrete roads, and then we will also use some of our just plain concrete parking spaces this side as well. And we have also done this outside the pulp mill, I would add, just so we've got a bit of parking down here for those who are working in the area. And clearly, again, we need lots of detailing around that to help that sit in and blend in, but I quite like the layers of height that we get as we come down this road between it and the pulp mill here. And again here as well, a little bit of detailing. But that sits in quite nicely, I think, up against this main collector. And once we've got a little bit more woodland in here and a little bit more detailing around it, it should sit in a lot better. And obviously with the furniture factory, we do need to supply warehouses for our paper and our plain timber and also our unique factory product goods. Now we have got these warehouse yards, which actually in this space over here that I have left here fit in really rather nicely. So let's just put in 3 of those there. And we're going to call this plain timber, and this one can be paper. And then we'll also go back to, we'll have 2 papers over here, and then what we will do over this side is add in another plain timber. So we've got 2 of each essentially on this side. Now these don't import, cannot be imported, so we can leave these on balance and we'll be absolutely fine. That won't export too much of it. Obviously we need a lot of surface paint around here to help that blend in. And then similarly over this side, what I'm actually thinking here is that because we've got now the factory, would be nice to add in a little warehouse kind of yard essentially for it. Let's again grab the plain concrete road. We'll bring out a segment of it this side, and then we're going to add in some warehouses to create a little bit of a yard here. Now if we use a little bit of move it with these, this can help to line all of these up. Let's just bring those in a little bit closer. Same goes for this side as well. We'll just pull that slightly further away from the road and bring it up alongside the back of there. So this now feels a lot more like one complex. And then we can just bring this back just a tiny touch. And again, lots of detailing needed in here to kind of fence in this whole area. We'll concrete over all of these gaps in here and add lots of props and decals and the such like to really bring it to life. Oh, now look, the traffic is somewhat clearing up. Seems to have cleared up in this middle section at least. Yeah, it's definitely clearing up. We're not backing out through Cadbury now. So it is just a matter of time with these things. And hopefully then once this is all settled down and is operating more normally, some of these warning signs will go away with it as well. Now just in terms of the other factories, let's fly on over firstly to the port. I think we're okay here. Crops plastic. Yeah, we're all fine here. But over at the port, yeah, we do have the modular house factory, which needs plain timber. So we've had this turned off for quite a while. We can now turn this on. And I think, as well, we did set it up with a warehouse yard near here, which would take plain timber. We've got plastics, glass, metals, plain timber. Yeah, exactly. So we are starting to now see this fill up, which is super exciting, actually. So we can get our modular house factory running. And let's crank this right up to 150, because why not? And this should hopefully start really kind of bringing in a bit more money as well to Auridon, because it started to slow down a little bit after the boost that we got from the big farming industry that we put in. I think the other factory that we wanted to turn on was over here. Yeah, we've actually got 2 here. So we have got the toy factory. Again, it's already ramped up to 150. Let's turn this on now that we've got paper and plain timber. Again, let's just make sure that we've got the warehouses set up for this. So we do have plain timber and paper over here. So yeah, that's all fine. And I think we've got even more, yeah, over here. So we've got tons and tons of warehouses for these products. We've also got the printing press as well, so let's turn that on. Let's ramp this up to 150 and let's get the money flowing. Oh goodness, the traffic. We've got traffic problems. Oh my goodness. This is all just the influx of trucks. I'm hoping that'll calm down. Otherwise we might have a traffic fix episode coming next. Now, just before we come on to the next thing, I just very quickly noticed that we have hit 100,000 population. In fact, we're way over it already. So that is quite exciting. It's only taken us 55 episodes and several live streams to get here, but that's a big milestone for Auridon. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is actually access for people working in this area. Now, of course, we've got this internal train line running through here, which runs from Cadbury all the way through. Actually, there is a diversion that goes off into the Jennifer Farmer's farm and also across to Iron Grandpa district, but also goes into the Pink Lady district here and then straight on into the downtown. So really well connected from Cadbury. But I think what we want to do is be able to bring any workers from Cadbury or from Iron Grandpa district, or indeed the rest of Auridon, actually into our farming area. We don't seem to be complaining for workers right now. We've still got a little bit of industrial demand despite having plopped all of this down. So I think we're okay. And we are almost at level 5, I would add as well. So almost at the production level needed. We're way over the workers. So yeah, we're all right. And there's not that many jobs to fill. But before we come onto the train station, I do just want to add in some policies here. So I think we will go for the improved logistics, which is going to make our storage capacity of extractors and processing buildings increased, which will help to get rid of some of these warnings. There we go. A lot of them are immediately disappearing. And we're also going to go for advanced automation as well, which increases the production output, but also increases upkeep. Now, we're all right for money. I know it's quite far down in the red right now, but we're pretty stable. So we should be able to afford that. And that will help with our production, which will then hopefully bring in more money from all of our different factories that we've got going on here too. Right, back to the train station. So what I would like to put in here is one of the historical train stations, I think, would be the nicest fit. So let's grab, I think we'll just grab our standard 2-lane road for this, or whatever road we're using over here, which is that. And we're going to bring this down as a nice connection from Cadbury as well, a secondary connection into this little forestry area here. Now we want to kind of keep this a pretty decent gap away from this mainline train line. So let's come in with a straight section here, and I think this is ultimately where we'll probably put the train station. And then we'll curve it back round. And I think what we will do is actually just have a level crossing here, which may be controversial, but we should be fine. There aren't that many trains that come down this line. It is only an internal line. And then to give them other options for getting around, we also have this road here. Now I'm just going to upgrade this to our regular vanilla road, which I think makes sense because so much traffic. Oh my goodness. We are going to need a traffic fix. Right, so we're going to bring this road straight through and underneath these rail here. So we're going to actually just tunnel it rather than do our little stinky road trick using Move It and Anarchy. So let's tunnel under, we'll go straight under, and then we'll come back up this other side. We want to make sure that we're doing it to a nice distance so we get a decent slope on it and it's not too much of a slope going down into that tunnel. Now we also have this road here which comes directly past the industrial area of Cadbury, so I think it would be good and wise to also connect this one up. So I think what we'll do here is we're actually going to follow some of this forestry line around and create a little bit of a windy road around the edge here. Now all of those roads are connected up and give them other options for getting into Auridon this way. And of course then they've also got the highway road that connects onto the highway up this side too. So there are various options now. We just want to connect the back of the forestry industry into this road. But let's start off with the train station. So yeah, we'll use the Seaside Resorts train station here, and I think let's place it quite nice and near to where the main yard is. And then we'll grab some of our no catenary train tracks that we've been using across Auridon, and we'll bring in some nice long slip roads to connect this up. I think most of the train traffic will come and stop at this station, but it might be that we want a couple of through routes as well, which is why we will leave that open there. Let's just connect that in there, and there's plenty of room for a train to wait if needs be here without blocking the tracks, which is exactly what we want for this kind of basic simple train connection. Of course, let's not forget to move our train lines in. So let's firstly grab the orange line here. And the blue line, I think we'll bring both of these in, and then this will give them options across to Iron Grandpa and then also into the main downtown of Auridon as well. So around this train station, we are just going to add in a tiny amount of commercial into here. So let's grab just our generic vanilla commercial assets and have a look and see what might fit in here. Now, we don't want anything too built up. Like, I think a little petrol station would be very appropriate here. Let's just place down that and we'll add this onto the corner, just bringing it slightly further away from the road. I think will be a nice touch there. We can use a little bit of surface painter to tidy this up. And then perhaps a little cafe as well to go with it. And these are all quite low, small buildings, which goes with the train station feel. We don't want anything too big and built up here. Look, we got people using it already. That's great to see. Great to see. Then I think let's finally just have one very small shop here, which this one will do absolutely fine for, but it does want some parking in front of it. Now, because we're not zoning in, which will give you the parking in front of it, we do need to add that ourselves, so let's go ahead and do that, and we'll just add this little bank of 6 parking in there, and perhaps also in front of the cafe as well. Maybe that's too much. We'll add another little 3 block, I think, in there. And let's just make sure that this terrain is nice and smooth as well, because that surface looks very, very bumpy indeed. So we'll just level out this small commercial area here, and then a touch of smoothing at the back just to level out that ground. Yeah, that's much better. I think really that's all we need actually in terms of commercial. I don't think we want to add much more than that. But what would be nice as well around here is a couple of small housing developments, I think. Just a couple of odd ones that are fairly near to the train station, but not so close that it's going to impact anything, is kind of what I'm going for here. So let's just use a plain unmarked suburban road like that, and we'll find a few low density assets to add in here. So I think something like that will do nicely. So I have just literally placed in just a couple along the road here. These 2 off on their own little driveway there. And then a few more down this side as well. Just to pad that out a little bit. Feels very rural out here. Right next to the very probably noisy forestry yard. But that is really all the assets that we want to put in. We just need lots of detailing to help blend this all in together. So lots of these yards that we'll be placing all throughout the forestry area. A little bit more of the generic buildings as mentioned. Coming in with prop line tool to fill out some of these empty gaps with some of the conifers. A little bit of detailing around the houses and the commercial out here in the train station. But apart from that, we should be good. So I'll jump into a detailing time lapse and I will be right back. Okay, so let's have a little look at what we've done. And I have actually, compared to some of my other industrial areas, tried to keep this pretty simple. I've used relatively minimal amounts of props and kept lots of open space, which I think is needed when you've got all of these trees kind of crowding everything in. I think it's nice to have open spaces left over. So yeah, I have just come in here, and with these two fused buildings here, I have just added in the additional fence we needed to complete the building. And a few little props at the back just to build out some of these plain timber supplies here, a couple of little forklifts and the such like, but that was really it. Obviously over the whole thing there is decals absolutely everywhere to rough up the surface of the gravel and the concrete. I just think it looks a lot more natural and realistic with all of those decals as always. And then coming in around the pulp mill over here, we've just added in a few rocks where we had a little bit of terrain kind of, slightly too steep for my liking, just to leave it as grass. And it gives quite a nice little effect from the road. You can peek in and see it, which I quite like. Oh, and just to add, we've added in these signs where I have used Prop Anarchy to make the Forest Foundation sign much, much bigger, which I think is quite a nice little addition to the entranceways into the complex. And they are on all entranceways, I would add. So if we go back down here as well, we've got one right on this corner too, which I think is a really nice touch. But heading back on over here, so yeah, we have just added in fencing around the furniture factory and the pulp mill and around this little warehouse yard over here, a couple of trucks in here and decals, but that was really it. I tried to kind of minimise how much trash I'm actually putting over here. Like, I haven't actually put any in this area, which feels really naked and bare to me. However, I think it's needed. Like I said, I've tried to be a little bit more different with this industrial area compared to others where I just fill it with trash and props and the such like. And then we come on over here and it's similar. I've got a little bit of overgrowth in here and then some leftover tractors ready to transport some of those logs. And then we've got another little service yard which I've built around this generic forestry zoned industry building here. Trucks and a little bit of trash, a little tiny bit of trash, not too much. There's just some stacked up planed timber and some crates at the back there. Again, lots of decals. I tried to use this sand, kind of, it almost looks like sawdust, sandy kind of decal. In the dirt decals here, which I think looks nice around all of the wood and the forestry. I've used them quite a bit in some of the sawmills, like little splashes of it here and there in the biomass pellet plant and the such like. We fenced in the whole area. I like this actually, with the two nature reserve paths right up close next to each other. I like vanilla surface painter type thing. But when we add decals over the top, it gets rid of that kind of gravel texture of the pathways, and you're just left with these grass and stumps, which I really like as a kind of lead up from the road out onto these sapling fields here. Which again, we've just used decals to create these little pathways in the middle of it, a few little puddles here and there, which I think helps to add a layer of realism. But again, yeah, that's mostly it. It is very similar over here. Just added in another generic forestry building here with a little yard, only fenced in on a couple of sides because it's all very open. It's part of one business, part of one complex, so I thought that was needed. Minimal trash, not too much, a little bit more random in the props out here because this is right in the middle of the forestry complex, so I guess it matters slightly less. So that's what we've done there. Similar over here, a little bit of trash again, and slightly more higgledy-piggledy, but left lots of open space. And yeah, that is really it all the way around. We've had a fire here, which is why the trees look a little bit strange. I've come in and filled in, so a lot of these are just prop-lined trees here, plopped in as opposed to actual tree places. So I've tried to fill in a lot of those gaps that we had around the edge, like here, just with a few extra trees. So it helps to make it feel slightly less blocky, although it is still very much a complex and a plot of land. Then if we come on down to the houses, I've added in little backyards with hedges, of course, a little bit of undergrowth when we come down to street level. Go over this level crossing here. We've got undergrowth under the trees, which I think looks quite nice. Then we come up to these houses, again all backyarded in. And we keep on going. Now I've left open green space here between the road and the forestry complex. Of course everything is fenced in, so it looks very much like a complex, which I think was kind of needed for this area. I think it leaves like a nice open kind of village green for the people who live in this town, so I'm happy with that. And there's lots of people using the trains as well. Not too busy, but it's a nice steady flow of people, which is good to see. And with the commercial, we've just fenced that all in, added in a little playground here, backyards for all of the houses, of course, and that's the same going up this road. And yeah, that's really it. And I've just noticed actually these crossings, we definitely don't want these on these residential neighbourhoods here, so let's use no controller just to get rid of those. And our dad, the warnings have gone. Everything has sorted itself out. We haven't got any traffic anymore. It's not backing up in either direction. It seems to be working pretty efficiently, dare I say it, actually. So if I just go to here, you can see we're making a ton of money. So this was on 13 million before, and it's now up almost 2.5 million, pretty much, in terms of money. So the factories are definitely helping. We're making profit from the forestry area itself. It's quite a bit going to paper and plain timber. We have an awful lot of just raw forest products getting exported, but that's fine. Traffic is not backing up. It's not an issue. Yeah, we haven't even got any warning signs. I'm feeling quite good about this. I was thinking those warning signs are going to stay forever, actually. In fact, even the farm ones have gone. Our industry seems to be balanced. So that is going to be it for today's build, and I'm really pleased actually with how this has come out. It's certainly helping our budget in Auridon. It's offering a hell of a lot more jobs. And yeah, we've completed all 4 industries now in the city, which is quite exciting indeed. And finally, of course, we need to give this area a name. So please do let me know your suggestions in the comments. I'm keen to give it a nice funky name like we have for some of our other industrial areas. Auridon, going right back to the start of the industry building, was a great name. So let me know what you think and we'll give it a name on a future episode. And if you are watching this and you haven't got the Industries DLC and you really fancy picking it up, please consider using my instant gaming link, which is linked in the description below. You'll get super cheap gaming codes from them, as well as helping to support this channel if you go via my link. But that is going to be it for today, so thank you so much yet again for tuning in. If you have enjoyed the video, likes, comments and shares are really super appreciated. And like I said, let me know your name suggestions in the comments as well, and any other builds that you would still like to see in Auridon. But that is all from me for today, so thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you again next time. Bye bye.